Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started in just a few minutes to give everyone time to join us. But we are very much looking forward to getting started with today's workshop and learning more from our wonderful guest speakers. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started so we can definitely get through our full agenda for today. Ella Blake, she, her. I am a senior project manager at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and I will be your facilitator for today's workshop. We are going to be hosting an STEM Scholars Community Workshop focusing on the topic of My STEM Story. So just a quick run through of we'll do a little bit of housekeeping here at the top. Then we'll share about the STEM Resource and Evaluation Center and how to engage in the scholars community. And then for the most part, we want to spend a lot of time today focusing on our panel discussion with our three guest speakers, who I'll introduce in just a moment. And then there will be plenty of time for questions from the audience, as well as some that we've identified ahead of time, and would love to highlight some of the wonderful experiences and perspectives from our panel today. So just a quick run through our housekeeping items. We just ask that you keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking, and as much as possible, please use the Q&A feature and the chat to share any questions or comments that you have throughout the session. As I mentioned, there will be a formal Q&A towards the end, but we also encourage you to engage in the chat, especially if you hear something that resonates with you. You're also welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're joining us from today, your institution if you'd like, if you're a current scholar, an alumni, or if you're not as familiar with the STEM program. We're so happy to have you here, and we would love to learn more about who's in the audience. You may have noticed that live ASL interpretation in today's webinar. We also have a live closed captioner, so please feel free to click on the closed captioning option available on your screen to make sure you can see those if you'd like to utilize them during today's call. We will have slides and a recording posted on our event page on the STEM Rec website after today's call. We do currently have a link to a PDF of our slide deck if you'd like to follow along on your own. If you run into any issues during today's webinar, we hope you don't, but if that does happen, please contact my colleague Lily Davy in the chat, or you can email her at ldavy@AAAS.org for any questions or issues. And then one quick plug for our survey. We will share a link and as well as a pop-up screen at the end for a post-event survey that we would love your feedback on, just to let us know how we can offer future events or resources that might be helpful to you and continue to learn and grow and make sure that we offer quality content for our audience. Next slide, Lily. Apologies, we might be having some technical difficulties, but we appreciate your patience. We'll move into just talking a little bit more about the STEM Rec. It is a program that is housed within the American Association for the Advancement of Science that supports the National Science Foundation Scholarships in STEM program. We refer to it as the STEM Rec or the STEM Resource and Evaluation Center. We're focused on providing support for the PIs or the faculty and staff that support STEM grants at their institutions, but also providing community as well as resources and other ways to support our scholar and alumni communities. And overall, one of the pieces of our mission is to engage with the larger STEM community, but also the public to get a better understanding of the impact that STEM has had since it initiated, and also start to communicate to anyone who's not aware of the STEM program what it is and what some of the benefits might be to the broader US workforce. So we're very excited to be able to host our webinars in as part of our different communication strategies that help to support the STEM Resource and Evaluation Center. And we're excited to have all of you here today. So I think we have Lily back now, so we'll give her a moment to get the slides back up on the screen. But in just a moment, we'll go ahead and introduce each of our panelists.
Sorry, everything just closed all of a sudden out of nowhere. So give me a second while I pull everything back up.
No worries, take your time. In the meantime, if anyone wants to introduce themselves in the chat or share any questions that you have for today's session, we'll make sure we capture those so we can bring them into our discussion with our panelists. Hi, Anne Catherine. Thanks so much for introducing yourself. We're happy to have you here. Jason, thanks for joining us. All right, it looks like we are almost back up and running with slides. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and launch into our uh, introductions of our panel for today. We're very, very excited to have this particular group with us to be able to talk about their experiences, but also answer your questions and maybe share their perspective as to how you might be navigating your own journeys in STEM. So first, I'd like to introduce Caroline Murphy. She's built her career at the intersection of science, policy, and public engagement, translating the work of wildlife biologists and ecologists for congressional offices, administrative officials, and broader audiences. Throughout her career, she's worked to strengthen decision makers' literacy on wildlife conservation and management issues and has advanced science-based solutions that support the recovery of at-risk species. Originally from upstate New York, Caroline holds a bachelor's degree in wildlife ecology and conservation from the University of Delaware. We're so glad Caroline's here with us. And next up, we have Aria Aweno. Aria is an incoming neuroscience PhD student at UC Berkeley, currently working as a research technician in molecular neuroscience at the Scripps Research Institute. Her primary research focus is on discovering natural, non-opioid modulators of pain by targeting PIEZO2, a mechanosensitive ion channel that mediates our sense of touch. She is the second in her family to earn a bachelor's degree and the first to earn a master's. Growing up low income, she had an unconventional route into research and works as an educator to advocate for class diversity in higher academia and science. Thanks so much for joining us today. And our third panelist is Caitlin Webster. Caitlin is a reproductive biologist in the Department of Genetics at Harvard, where she explores big questions about sex development and fertility using small eyeless cavefish. She studied biology at Smith College and cultivated a passion for all things reproduction as a research assistant in a gynecological pathology lab. Caitlin earned a PhD in molecular biology from UMass Boston through her research on genetic causes of male infertility using zebrafish as a model system. Currently, she studies ovary and testes development and uses rapidly evolving cavefish as a platform to discover factors that ensure species-specific sperm-egg fusion. a project that earned her a 2025 L'Oreal for Women in Science Fellowship. As a first-gen student from a low-income family, she's a passionate advocate for accessible STEM outreach and community-based mentorship. Caitlin is on the board of directors of the nonprofit Science Club for Girls, through which she also serves as a mentor to youth in her hometown of Cambridge, mirroring and paying forward her own pathway into science. So that's just a snapshot of all of the wonderful things our panelists are engaged in and are going to be chatting with you about today. First up, we'd like to welcome Caroline to share a little bit more about herself.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamila. Appreciate the introduction. Lily, do you want to go to the next slide? Awesome. Thank you. So my background, as Jamila stated, really involves the intersection of science and scientific professionals, particularly in the wildlife ecology arena, and how that intersects with policy, particularly at the federal level. Lily, do you want to go to the next slide? So as stated, I have an undergrad degree in wildlife ecology from the University of Delaware. I generally knew and understood from pretty early on in undergrad that I was not as interested in like the applied science route. I had done some wildlife research technician jobs. You can see me in that photo there in the marshlands of the eastern United States. But wasn't, I don't know, it didn't really catch my interest as much as I thought it would going in. So I kind of set up my extracurricular activities around my desired path. I was really involved in politics at the University of Delaware. So Delaware is a very small state, and it was very easy to get involved at the state level in state level races, governor's races, the one house race there. Within that, it provided me a decent avenue to work on my soft skills. So I did a lot of canvassing, going door to door, asking people about political issues affecting their day-to-day lives. It was occasionally pretty miserable, but it also really gave me a strong foundation just through repetition of meeting new people over and over and over again as to how to talk to strangers and how to build my interpersonal communication skills in order to kind of foster my desired goals, which was going into not so much politics, but policy. So Lily, do you want to go on to the next slide? All right, so in the political space, a lot of the work is around, messaging to convince the broader public that you are, the individual right for the job, or you're the campaign right for the job. Within the policy space, it's kind of the inverse. It's, okay, you have the job, or you're in this, administration or career position as a bureaucrat. How do you affect change now that you have convinced the populace? So that was really where my interest kind of laid when I was able to graduate from undergrad. I really targeted more of a policy route that was applicable to my background. So I started working at the Wildlife Society, a professional association that represented wildlife biologists and managers. So my job, I spent about 8 years there. My job was to translate the work of wildlife professionals to decision makers so they understood, okay, this is impacting XYZ species within your district, within your state. Here are some solutions. And also the inverse of that. I worked to educate wildlife biologists and managers on bureaucratic processes, policy processes that impacted their work. So I took that experience, again, about 8 years there, I think 8 or 9 years there. And then I moved on to federal service. So trying to affect change outside the system, and then trying to affect change within the system. So I worked in the ecosystems mission area of the US Geological Survey as a public affairs, but also within government affairs. So I would serve on like cross agency bodies to ensure, there was adequate communication between the US Geological Survey and Fish and Wildlife Service or Forest Service on the conservation of XYZ species. Just to continue making sure that, folks were talking, we were all working towards a common goal. And that work led me to a detail assignment at the Office of Management and Budget. So this was a cool part of federal employment at the time. I had the opportunity to work for a year at the Office of Management and Budget and provide folks within the administration. I was there between the transition August 2024 to August 2025 context on what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the career folks there need in order to deal with this administration priority. So I was really the conduit between the professionals and the political appointees on natural resources work. Unfortunately, that job I was purged out of, so I lost my job alongside many federal folks. But on the whole, I mean, federal employment is very rewarding, can be very rewarding, and something to consider, within your track. Lily, can you go to the next slide? Okay, it is not showing the next slide for me, but I might end there because I know we're going to talk about takeaways later. So I'll leave it at that for now.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much for being so flexible with our technical difficulties. I do think we unfortunately lost Lily again. So we're gonna keep things rolling though. If anyone has questions for Caroline that we can integrate into the Q&A later, feel free to start dropping them in the chat and so we can keep track of them and no one forgets any questions related to what Caroline chatted about. But next up, we have Adia.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for your time today. My name is Adia Ueno, and I'm an incoming neuroscience PhD student at UC Berkeley. So I'm a bit earlier in my career path than our other wonderful seminar speakers, so I'll be mostly focusing on my experience in undergrad, as a technician postgrad, and then a little bit about the PhD application process, especially how all of these stages have been shaped by being a low-income student. Um, I graduated from UC San Diego with a bachelor's degree in ecology in 2023 and a master's degree in biology in 2024. Following graduation, I began working as a research technician in the Patapoutian Lab, which is a molecular neuroscience laboratory at the Scripps Research Institute that studies mechanosensation, which is the ability of our cells and neurons to detect physical forces and convert them into signals. After 2 years as a technician, I applied to PhD programs and I got into my dream program at UC Berkeley, where I'll begin as a PhD student this coming August. Um, I've been outstandingly fortunate to have such a straightforward pathway into STEM, but this journey has been very heavily influenced by financial need as a low-income student. Slide, please, Lily. Thank you. I'm the first individual in my family to attain a master's degree, let alone attend a PhD program or work in STEM altogether. Growing up, my parents worked in the restaurant industry as a waitress and a busboy, and so I attended school under FAFSA, and I paid for the rest of my tuition and living expenses by working full-time while also attending school full-time. I initially decided to attend UC San Diego because its tuition was the most affordable of all the colleges I'd have been accepted into. And even my choice of major in ecology, even though I love the subject, was selected very intentionally to help me graduate early and to save on a whole year of tuition. And so, despite all these efforts to try and make college more affordable, by the end of my third and final year in undergrad, I was living out of my car and struggling with food insecurity. Um, Next slide, please, Lily. Throughout my undergraduate education, I found myself very excited and invigorated by biological research. But given the fact that I was paying my own way through college, I found it extremely difficult to dedicate time to unpaid lab positions. And I think this is a struggle that continues to prevent low-income students who are working full-time jobs to survive from entering a field that almost ubiquitously requires trainees to have lab experience, especially when most early career students are expected to take on unpaid volunteer positions. Next slide, please, Lily. One of the most frustrating reality checks of financial inequality in STEM came to me in 2023 when I earned the prestigious Fulbright Award. The Fulbright grant supports a post-grad student with the funds to conduct research abroad for up to a year. And I highly suggest that if you're very interested in conducting research abroad, you absolutely apply to this program. Um, in my case, this incredible fellowship would have taken me all the way to Japan to study the effect of nutrient deposits from Mount Fuji on the local Suruga Bay. But unfortunately, the grant only covers a very minimal living stipend, and committing to this award would have ended up costing me the same amount as a fourth year of full-time college tuition, which I'd worked so hard to avoid. And beyond the financial barrier, my family, and I think many other low-income families, have very strong familial obligations. And moving so far, like away from home for education or a career is a challenge. And ultimately, I decided to decline the Fulbright Award. This decision was extremely difficult, and at times I really envied the researcher that I imagined I could have been if I'd only had more flexibility with this path. Next slide, please, Lily. It's unavoidable how pervasive the effects of financial need are to accessibility, to a STEM education and career. But I really want to impress upon you that if you felt like you've had to put your education or career growth on the back burner for a familial or financial obligation, you are absolutely not alone. Even more so, I strongly argue that this makes you an even better student and scientist. Being low income has given me a unique perspective on the biological questions I seek to answer and has given me a drive, adaptability, and purpose that I think is uniquely well suited for the scientific process. Next slide, please, Lily. Being low income has fueled my intense passion for education and mentorship, which absolutely makes me a better scientist. I've worked as a variety of tutors in tandem with working in a lab over the last 7 years or so, and this passion has not only supported me financially, but also made me a much better lab mentor. Next slide, please. And even now, being low income shapes the decisions that I get to make about my career, but now with more certainty and flexibility and passion. This last PhD cycle, I found myself with the incredible opportunity to choose between Stanford and Berkeley, and ultimately I got to choose Berkeley consciously for my PhD because its cohorts have the same passion for community service and involvement that I really value. Its students champion a partnership, for example, between Berkeley and the local San Quentin State Prisons College, which awards inmates with associate's degrees, tuition free. And opportunities like this not only combine my passions for biology and teaching, but also my desire for community and having a good, tangible impact on others through STEM. Next slide, please. As a low-income student or any student who comes from a background with low representation in academia or STEM, just getting your foot in the door can be a very gargantuan task. But I strongly believe that once your foot is there, your background is absolutely your strongest asset as you begin navigating your journey in STEM. Thank you so much for your time, and also thank you to the captioner and ASL interpreters.
Thank you so much, Adia. That was such a wonderful view of not only your experiences, but thank you so much for highlighting those potential opportunities and how to maybe think about navigating those for anyone on the call that might be interested in applying for any of those opportunities. So I am very excited to introduce our third panelist, Caitlin Webster. So Caitlin, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, thank you so much for including me. I'm really happy to talk to you today and so happy to hear the stories of Caroline and Adia. Next slide. So I grew up in East Cambridge, which is in the white circle in this map. It's sort of near Boston. And East Cambridge is an interesting place. I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, a very diverse neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, I didn't know anybody who was a scientist or had gone to college. And my parents, for example, had not finished high school. And I would say that in my family and in my local community, higher education was not viewed positively. It was sort of discouraged. And as Adia mentioned, uh, obligations to family and community in situations like this can hold you back from pursuing a different type of life than those who raised you or grew up around you. So if you go to the next slide, the interesting thing about Cambridge is that even though I was having this experience and many people were having this experience as uneducated or low-income folks, this is also where you find institutes of higher education like Harvard and MIT. And in this map on the right, we're seeing all of the biotech pharmaceutical industry that has taken over this neighborhood in the past few years. So we have companies like Genzyme, Pfizer, Moderna, Novartis, industry like Google and Apple. And even though we are geographically close to this industry, people who grew up in my neighborhood have no access to, no on-ramp to these types of industries. And they are taking over the communities, but there is very little outreach to the people who live in these communities to bring them into STEM, to bring them into higher education. So for me, it was really interesting thinking about like, how do I get here? How do I break through this environment that is really like at the end of my street? Why do I feel like I live in a different place and like I don't have access to this thing that is all around me? Next slide, please. So this kind of changed for me when I was in junior high. I had a librarian. I was extremely a library kid. And my librarian and my science teacher recognized that as an at-risk youth, I was not getting any support at home. I was not in a supportive environment. And these two women worked together to help set me up for success. So they found out that one of these biotech companies was opening a community outreach laboratory. And they worked together to literally sign me up for this program and give me this leg up into this opportunity. So the woman in the picture on the left, her name is Tracy Callahan. She was my very first Women in STEM mentor, and she taught me how to do basic bench work in molecular biology, but more importantly, she taught me how to finish high school. She taught me how to fill out a FAFSA. She taught me how to apply for college. This woman made such an impact on my life, and I realized that I've sort of taken from her example and grown up to be the same type of mentor that she is. Next slide. So working with Tracy Callahan through high school, I was able to do a science fair project like most of us do. And that's me on the left in high school winning the science fair. And that really was a big deal for me at the time, coming from the family I came from, the neighborhood I came from. This really basic activity of like helping me with my science fair project gave me an on-ramp to see that I could participate in science and to see that if I wanted to keep doing it, I could follow Tracy Callahan's footsteps. I could go to college. I could become a research scientist. So flash forward many years later, this is me winning a AAAS L'Oreal for Women in Science Fellowship, which I could never, ever have imagined for myself when I was growing up in this neighborhood. This is not a future I would have had access to if it were not for the impact of Women in STEM mentors and free community outreach programs. Next slide, please. So today, I am so excited and privileged to get to be this grown-up that I so desperately needed when I was an at-risk youth. So in my neighborhood of Cambridge and Somerville, I am a mentor with an organization called Science Club for Girls that offers totally free experiential STEM education to girls and gender expansive youth from underrepresented groups in the greater Boston area. So here's me, just like my mentor, Tracy, teaching kids how to do biology, And this is us handing out the free supply kits to the folks in our neighborhood. I am bragging about how it's free because it's really a big deal when you have access barriers to have a cost-free opportunity to give your kids access to STEM. And in the bottom, this is a picture of some of my students and me making rockets this year. So I'm privileged to have grown up to be a scientist because of this mentorship. And I'm so excited to find my purpose in being the same exact type of mentor in my community now that I have made it this far in my career. Next slide. And Science Club for Girls not only fulfills me by giving me these mentorship outlets and helping me find my purpose, but it also gives me experiences that I never was aware of before. So here's me representing Science Club for Girls at the State House in Massachusetts. And the four of us in this white rectangle, we're all from the same neighborhood of East Cambridge. And this is my state senator and representative. And also the mayor of Cambridge is one of my high school classmates. And so this really opened my eyes to the fact that as scientists and educators, we have impact in our local community and our state government, and we are able to communicate the research side of our work to the people who are implementing policy and shaping the workforce and the STEM education landscape. And it's really important to be a trustworthy scientist, to be a personable scientist, to be a representative of your community, because uniquely you have the ability to get your message across to the people who look like you, sound like you, and grew up in the same place as you. We'll go to my final slide. So the last thing I'd sort of like to leave you with is my path was like really all over the place. And to be honest, I have failed and hit the bottom way more times than I've succeeded. And that's a major takeaway I'd like to pass on to you, is that there are going to be ups and downs. And if I had just known at the beginning of my journey that failure was allowed, that failure could be expected, I would have prepared better for it. So, for example, I started on a high. I was the first person in my family to go to college, the first person to pursue anything like a career in STEM, and that was really exciting. But then, as soon as I finished college, I got a job in a lab and I was fired 3 weeks later. And so that was really a tough time for me, but I found my way back up. I became a research assistant in a lab doing OBGYN research, which really changed my life and helped me find my passion. But then that closed, and we know that funding in science is not dependable. So I was sort of down again. I had to start over in a new research lab, and 5 years had gone by, and I wasn't focused on going to graduate school. And I thought that would never happen for me. But eventually it did. I found my way there. I kind of started a PhD program. My advisor backed out of the program, and again, I had to start all over. But I found a lab. I eventually got a PhD. I got a postdoc. That didn't go so well either. I quit that first postdoc and I thought, that's it. Okay, finally, I failed enough times. I can't be in STEM anymore. But the trend here is like you always find a way to start over. You always find people to support you and get back up. So I found a new postdoc in a great lab. I'm doing cool stuff I never thought I would get to do. And I am more prepared to meet the challenges of the future because I've survived these ups and downs. And I know that I have my community and my mentors to keep supporting me. And I'd love to take any questions from you. And thank you again for allowing me to be part of this program.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your own STEM stories with our audience today. There are so many pieces that connect between them, but also so many unique things that you've navigated on your own and have been so kind in sharing with us how you navigated those situations and providing some advice to people who might encounter that in their own journeys. So now we're going to shift into our Q&A. And we're really excited to be able to engage a little bit more with all of you that have joined us today to hear from our panel. So we're going to kick things off with just learning a little bit more about how each of you got started in STEM. What initially made you interested in STEM, whether for your academic journey or as you moved into the workforce, what about STEM fields really drew you in or made you excited to pursue that particular path? For this question, Caroline, if you'd like to start.
Sure. Yeah. So will start a little younger. I was very fortunate that my parents were very much outdoor enthusiasts. So I was outside a lot growing up. I worked at a sleepaway summer camp for several summers, and I was the outdoor education director there when I was an undergrad. So I had already kind of started on my path towards STEM. I was pursuing a wildlife ecology degree at that point. Um, but I think that job and like dealing with again the interpersonal communications around natural resources really got me excited. I think specific to my unique STEM journey, which is kind of branched beyond the sciences specifically. Um, my kind of kernel that resulted in this fully formed idea was the opportunities I had in undergrad, in addition to my camp experience, seeking out those extracurricular opportunities. I will say one of my takeaways that I was going to flag is just to be open to, where this foundational scientific degree may take you. There are so many adjacent careers. Like I didn't do wildlife ecology, but I found a way to advocate on behalf of, wildlife ecologists. So like the peripheral advocacy, communications, those sorts of roles, having that base scientific foundation, I think has been really additive for me in my career. Because that's a lot of my like policy counterparts I was working with had much more of a soft sciences background, public policy, maybe international affairs, and that is very additive as well. But I think my educational scientific background really brought in a unique perspective. So not, I guess I kind of got away from your question a bit. So yeah, let me know if any follow-ups.
No, that was great. And I think really hopeful to highlight all of the different ways that initial interest in STEM can really branch off and provide these new and interesting opportunities to you that you might not have known could connect back to that initial interest. So thanks so much for sharing that, Caroline. Adia, would you like to share with us a little bit about your initial interest in STEM?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Truthfully, my interest in STEM started out a little more pragmatically. I When I applied for college initially and decided that I was going to try to go and get a higher education, I thought to myself that if I was going to spend all this time and money and be away from home, it should be at least in a field that A, I thought made a lot of money that I could bring back home, and B, was something that I wouldn't be able to learn anywhere else. So biology was like I took a biology class in high school and I was like, oh, this is so much fun. Plus, I think that science majors are financially stable. So I like chose my major based off of that thought. And over the last, throughout undergrad and then throughout my technician position and then now, I think my interest has grown due to specific passions that I have. So my passions I would consider mentorship and education, and then being able to be curious. And that doesn't restrict me necessarily, or hasn't restricted me necessarily to any specific topic. I started out in ecology and I loved it. And then I actually started out in microbiology and then I transitioned into ecology and then now I transitioned into a neuroscience lab. And I think my interests in education and being able to be curious have allowed me to maintain interest in these seemingly disparate fields um, throughout the last 7 years or so.
Yeah, that another great example of how you can have that initial spark somewhere and then find out about all these different offshoots that can really contribute to your initial passion, but also bring you into things that people don't initially think about when you think of STEM, like mentoring and the community building pieces. They're so, so important, but they're not maybe necessarily those hard science pieces that people are wanting to drive home when you're thinking about STEM. Caitlin, would also love to hear from you.
Sure. Um, I was like a super city kid and like feral and unparented. And honestly, I watched a lot of TV and I loved science TV shows like Bill Nye and Beakman's World. And I read a lot of like zoo books at the library. And that's definitely where I became interested in what science looks like. But similar to Audia, if it were not for my high school mentor showing me that you can get a really good job in your neighborhood working at a biotech company, if it weren't for seeing that bridge from like the education to the outcome that benefits my family financially, I don't think I would have made the leap from my interest in science to thinking like this is something that's worth doing. And that is a burden I think a lot of first gen students experience, the trade-off between your passion, your interest, your calling, and like needing to support sometimes your own parents or different generations of your family, or to be solely responsible for yourself. So just seeing that it was like a job where I could earn enough money really made a difference and me thinking it was achievable. And then once I was sort of like in the stream, I have to just share like something I always take an opportunity to say. I thought that you had to pay to go to graduate school, and that kept me away from thinking this was a viable career for so long. And every time I meet new students at a seminar, at a mentorship opportunity, I see that this myth still lives and is holding so many of us back. When you are in a lab, you are working, you are teaching, and you're getting a stipend. And I wouldn't have wasted 5 years, being not that it was a waste, but I just didn't know that you don't have to pay for this. And that changed my life once I figured out that information. So just like the financial barriers being removed really took my interest in science from like a dream to a thing that actually fit into my life.
Yeah, right there with you. When I was in undergrad, did not realize that someone would be able to pursue a graduate degree without having to pay those fees and potentially have a lot of opportunities to have those financial needs covered to be able to do research in a lab or pursue a specific part of a STEM discipline that I would have assumed would be another student loan, another scholarship I had to find. And having some of those barriers removed, even just mentally, to be able to think about what your different pathways are, is such an important piece to know earlier on and not necessarily preemptively hold yourself back when you could start pursuing those things that much sooner. So I really appreciate you highlighting that, Caitlin. Um, I would encourage anyone who is interested in asking our panelists any questions, feel free to start adding them in the chat. It could be directed to everyone on the panel or just an individual panelists. But we'd love to integrate your thoughts and your questions into the discussion that we're having today. In the meantime, all of you have brought up mentorship and community building in different ways and how that's impacted the way that you have been able to navigate your particular pathways in STEM. What does community building look like to you, and what has been your experience with identifying mentors and building healthy relationships with them? Um, Adia, if you'd like to maybe kick us off for this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something that I've struggled with perhaps recently. I think that at this stage in my career, I've become more acutely aware of the difference in background of my colleagues and myself. And I think that's just something I'm struggling with at this moment. And so finding mentors is a little bit difficult. Sometimes I'm homesick, and sometimes I miss the colloquiality of a certain background. that sometimes doesn't exist in mentors in academia. There's a certain seriousness and just I don't know, there's a certain demeanor of people, I think, mostly in STEM, that I struggle to find relatable mentors in. Um, but I think I've been able to code switch very well and also adapt very well to the um, professional environment in STEM. I think it is very rewarding then to be in the position of a mentor for my mentees who are undergrads and high schoolers. And I think that fulfills the rewarding like ability to find community for me. So I have my mentors and I meet them where we're at in the professional level. And then I have my mentees, and that allows me to feel a sense of community in STEM for sure.
That's so wonderful. And filling in that piece of sharing your mentorship experience with the next generation and those that are looking for some of that guidance that is sometimes a little hard to identify. That's so wonderful that you're kind of in a space where you can receive guidance from people that you respect and want to continue to work with, but also connecting with those who are still trying to find their path for themselves and being able to give back as you're still growing yourself, I think is also a really important idea to think about. You don't have to be at a certain point in your career. You don't have to be a particular age to start mentoring someone. To be that support system is really, really vital. Um, Caitlin, do you have anything you'd like to add about community building?
Yeah, I'll say that I think part of the reason I had so many pitfalls and difficult experiences at the beginning of my career is because I didn't understand how to find community and I didn't understand how to find the right mentor or role models for me. And I was looking to people who were just successful in STEM, which in my early career journey were mostly like older white men of privilege, and we had no common ground. These people couldn't understand me and, where I was coming from, literally and figuratively, when I showed up to lab each day. And I think if I had been able to connect with people who were more similar to me, there would have been a compassion and understanding that could have smoothed out those difficult times. And it took me a long time to realize like the barrier between my feeling of belonging and, all of STEM or higher education was me getting comfortable like telling the truth about my life and my experiences. And I felt like I had to keep everything secret. I felt like I had to carry a shame about where I came from and what my family was like and what my early life was like. And I thought no one else who goes to college, no one else who is a scientist, no one else who reaches this level has ever had an experience like what I have. And I have to keep these like dark things secret. But when I started revealing little bits of my true life experience with people, that's when and how I found my community. And I realized I wasn't alone, that there were many people around me who lived through the same types of experiences, but we all just were not talking about it. And so now I try to be the person who signals that it's okay to express these things, that there is a place of belonging for you. I really encourage storytelling and sharing personal identity when you're presenting your work, but also when you're, meeting your colleagues and trying to be part of a new workplace. Um, so I have to say, like, I didn't really have that community early in my career, but now I take a lot of joy in being the person who tries to cultivate it. And it really starts with just being comfortable sharing your story to mark yourself as a safe person to the people around you who are really struggling with the same exact things that you are.
No, thanks so much, Caitlin. Being able to bring your whole self into spaces is so valuable and validating when you are able to connect with people who have those pieces of shared identity, but also you touched on that important piece of feeling safe enough to do that. So signaling to others that this is a place where they can talk about themselves, they can talk about their experiences and their background and not feel like they're going to be ostracized or judged in any way, but just are able to deepen those connections is such a great way to start to build that community and allow others to find their community as well. Caroline, anything else you'd like to add?
Sure. Yeah, I will echo Caitlin's sentiments on leading with vulnerability. I, in creating a sense of community, like within federal policy in DC, there's a lot of egos, a lot of bluster, but there's also a lot of people that like lead with their heart on their sleeves and are really there because they want to affect change in the world. So that energy is like very cool to be around. So yeah, being able to like put my heart on my sleeve, make sure people feel comfortable again in leading with a vulnerable space, to exchange those feelings and thoughts. I mean, the working in environmental advocacy, particularly in interfacing with Capitol Hill, there is a lot of like, oh, did I just do absolutely nothing for the past 2 years? Like, I've worked on this bill that was introduced at the start of the session, got so many co-sponsors, and then it just dies an unceremonial death at the end of Congress. And it's like, wow, did I accomplish anything within those past 2 years? So having, a good base of support of like, these are the struggles I interact with in this space. Other people very much do as well. And yeah, just making sure people are, open and comfortable to talking with you about that.
I think that does a great job of touching on one of the questions we have in the chat from Jason, thinking about having that support system in place when you go through struggles or when you encounter hardships. It's so important to have those people already in place before you get to those struggles to know that you have people that you can be vulnerable with and talk through those issues and be able to get the advice that's helpful. So I'll tie in a little bit of this question from Seth as well. What are some ways in which you can maybe start to ask questions and identify those people that can be good support systems for you when you're going through hard times? And are there any questions or ways of approaching that you think would be helpful for people who are maybe a little earlier in their journey and haven't had to have some of those harder conversations with their mentors just yet? Caitlin, I don't know if you want to start us off for this one.
Sure. I feel super lucky to have landed in my PhD program at a place that really felt like home to me, which is UMass Boston. And in contrast to all the places I'd been and worked before, UMass Boston was majority low income or first gen students, is a majority non-white school. This is a school that really is integrated in the community, and there are many affinity groups within the school already that could support different experiences, different identities of the students there. And that sort of takes some responsibility, some pressure off of the PI or the research mentor that you might find, because that person, you might choose their lab because they study, in my case, like reproductive biology, and that's the person you want to work with. That person might be your best STEM mentor. They might be your best intellectual mentor, but they might not be equipped to handle all of the different facets of you as a person. And it might be that in the lab, you see people who look like you, and when you're interviewing at these programs, like you feel a sense of belonging with who's already there. But I would look at what groups that the universities have, like what awareness level they have, that a student is more than a set of hands in the lab. A student is a whole person, and these are many ways to support them. Like, for example, UMass Boston has like a food pantry for students experiencing food insecurity. And they have a lot of different ways that the students are supported in terms of like what difficulties you might experience that are beyond my experiment didn't work or my paper got rejected. Those are the things that your research mentors are equipped to handle. But is there any infrastructure socially in terms of your value system at these schools where like you could find connection to the right systems and people when things get difficult.
Thinking about those like full wraparound support mechanisms, I think are so valuable to know they exist and have people that can serve as those connectors for you to make sure that every part of you as a person, as a student, as an employee is being supported. Because if you just have the one piece covered, other pieces might suffer, and you are a whole person. And I think that's important for anyone serving in those mentor roles to really remember that while you might share that subject matter, there's so much more to you as individuals. Um, Caroline, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think a similar sentiment. I think, yeah, having an affinity group structure is wonderful, both in educational and professional settings. Also, kind of a screening question as you're feeling folks out that may be, in a position of power relative to you. Prioritization of personal time, work life balance, getting a sense. I think their reaction to that question could be very telling for you. It might be as simple like, yeah, no issues. This is the infrastructure we have in place to make sure that your work time is your work time, your personal time is your personal time. Um, or maybe they have, a strange, odd reaction that shows they prioritize their work life and the work life of those that work for them more than anyone's personal life. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that even if you have maybe found someone that you respect and you think is might be a great opportunity for you to engage with them, it's as much of an interview for them to get to know you as it is the other way around. You need to know that that's going to be a good fit for you and a supportive environment for you, regardless of what their decision is about wanting to engage further. You have to feel comfortable moving forward as well and think of it as more of a partnership than you being the person coming to someone else to help you. And Adia, if you'd like to add anything to that.
I mean, as I prepare to do rotations next year, I'm taking a lot of notes on what Caitlin and Carolyn are saying. Um, to echo what they both said, finding a school whose infrastructure is very similar to what you feel comfortable with, whether it's affinity groups or um, like something kind of silly that I really loved about Berkeley was that they have free public transit for all of their students, and they also have CalFresh for each of their students, which is the California version of food stamps. And having used CalFresh for most of my life in EBT, it is super exciting that they provide that service for their students and that they're aware of like the services that the state provides for low income low income families and low income individuals, and it felt very familiar. And so that was something that was very appealing to me. And the best advice that I've gotten from my cohort mates, and something that I use to find a technician lab, and that I'll continue to use to find a PhD lab, is to ask the students who are in the lab. There's no better advice you can get from how a mentor will be. So I've heard, and from the people who are in the position that you will be in. Um, and students are always very, very honest, brutally so, about their mentors and their experience. And so that should be extremely helpful to those searching for a lab environment to work in.
We are right at the end of the hour here. As much as I would love to continue this conversation, I have absolutely learned so much from the three of you and are excited that you were able to share all of this with our scholars, our alumni, and our STEM community. I will wrap up here with just asking each of you in 1 to 2 sentences if there's one piece of advice you'd like someone to take away from today's discussion, what would that be? Adia, if you could get us started.
I feel very strongly that your background is your largest asset as you continue into the um, STEM profession. I think there's a certain kindness and generosity and adaptability and resilience in the face of adversity that, I mean, all of these traits are ideal for research. You fail over and over again, and it's very similar to um, your upbringing as a low-income student, how you had to fail over and over again in order to get into the position that you are now. So I think you guys are all very uniquely poised to be fantastic in STEM.
Caitlin.
One way to tell my story or my bio is like I went to college, I studied biology, I was a research assistant, I got a PhD, and now I work at Harvard. That's one, a boring story, and two, it doesn't capture, like I showed you in my slides, all of the times I failed and quit, got fired, hit rock bottom, thought I was never going to be able to reach this outcome. Those things are in that story when you sort of stretch out the accordion, but the outcome is the same. So I think I would just like for everyone to feel, hopefully you don't have as many knockdowns as I did, but even if you do, it's not over until you say, I'm not going to try again. No one can tell you that you can't keep going. No one can tell you you can't try again or start over. There's so many ways to restart, to find a new group of people, to find a new lab, to find a new opportunity. And at the end of that journey, it's wherever you ended up, right? It doesn't matter how many times you got off and got back on. The point of this is like you still arrive at whatever you wanted to get, and your failures are not a reflection of how deserving you are of that final outcome. So be open to failure and hang in there.
All right, and last but not least, Caroline.
Yeah, I think I'll just add a little bit on. I don't know that we necessarily touched on this, but I think even if my specific career path doesn't speak to you, going from the sciences to more of advocacy and communications, I definitely encourage you to seek out opportunities to gain an understanding of the bureaucratic structures that impact your work. What are the state and federal agencies that regulate your industry, whatever it may be? What entities fund your industry? Does it come from public streams, private streams? Just getting an understanding of like the underpinning of your job, just as a reference point as you navigate your career, can be helpful.
Well, thank you all so much. Caroline, Caitlin, Adia, you have been absolutely wonderful, and I can't wait to continue to work with you in the future. Thank you all for joining us today and engaging in our discussion. We will hope to have more discussions like this moving forward. Hopefully, you'll take just a moment or two to fill out our survey so we can have more discussions around topics that are important to all of you. And if you are not already connected with us, feel free to send us an email, connect with us on social media, and remember to explore all of the resources that are available on the STEM-Rec website. But we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you all so much for being here and excited to seeing you again at future sessions. Have a great day.